And let's continue from where we stopped.
And naturally that speaks to the political structure that attempted to suppress such cultural expression, right?
In fact, folklore was less suppressed than any other cultural manifestation. Folk tales and folklore in general was collected, preserved and distributed through books, movies and cartoons. Next question, please.
Professor Torgerson, where does our movie Jack Frost fit in vis-a-vis the mythopoetic dimensions of later Russian literature?
If I understand this question correctly, it asks what place Morozko holds in controversial Russian culture, mythos and poetry. Morozko, first of all, is not quite a modern piece of Russian culture. Fairy tale with general plot and characters is at least several centuries old, and has about 100 variations throughout all Slavic nations. It was presented in literature in more or less consolidated form in the middle of 19th century, so its literature basis is quite old. The movie itself had a major impact in mid-60s, significantly developing film сказка genre, bringing up Ded Moroz and Baba Yaga's canonical personalities and appearances. Also, for that time it was a special effects heavy movie, granted fame and opportunities to filmmakers and director Alexander Roll, the great film сказкас with more budget and creative freedom. If Morozko was never filmed, there would be no film сказкас at all. At least not in the form everyone is used to. Next.
And do you see themes in this film, or indeed any other traditional Russian folklore, which prepare us for the tumultuous Russian politics of modern times?
The next question is tricky too, but I understand it as if Morozko contains some manifestations of Soviet mentality that could help understand and predict Soviet politics direction. Well, I can't say so. It's a movie for little kids, and it pushes simple truths. Don't be rude, be patient, be yourself, and so on. I know that these questions were made for comedic purposes only, and I wanted to show that these questions could be answered seriously, giving actual information about Soviet media culture of 60s. So, as I've covered MST's questions, now I will address IMDb comments. There is a lot of hate, but still a lot of positive comments too. I was really surprised when people from US, Canada and other countries were protecting this movie, and their comments sometimes were even more consistent than comments from Russian and Eastern European side. The one frequently mentioned problem was special effects. It seems that people thought that this movie was produced in a year they watched it on MST, 97. Or I simply don't know the reason. Well, I've seen a couple of movies from that years and in similar genre. Jack the Giant Killer and Magic Sword, which was also an MST. Special effects seemed at least on par. And the reversing movie was a favorite Soviet special effect, sometimes up to abusing scale. So I think that people complaining about special effects are just not very familiar with movies of that period. Actually, covering MST questions and IMDb comments contributes to all issues, so I'll stop addressing them and move to the movie itself. I'll use English dubbed version for your convenience. Also, it will be easier to pinpoint flaws of adaptation. So let's make it clear once and for all. First of all, many old folk tales were rhymed, and this movie is not an exception. Large part of script here is rhymed, which makes all dialogues much more interesting and vibrant. Unfortunately, this part is not translated into dubbed version at all, and among the few subtitles existing for this movie, there is not a single one that rhymed as well. It is said that this strong point of movie is not available for people who don't know Russian. Furthermore, this movie utilizes quite an archaic Russian vocabulary, so even if you know modern Russian, some words will still remain a mystery. For my generation, archaic vocabulary is quite a common knowledge. All kids were growing up on сказкас, full of old sayings, songs and terms. For the most part, books of сказкас were illustrated, to show things and concepts that weren't part of everyday life for centuries. Also, English dub is kinda shorter. In Russian version, the number of words is simply larger, so it's easier for kids to understand what's happening on screen. I've already told you about flaws of translation, and this is one of the examples. When bandits are waiting near the road and tearing flowers as a part of common fortune-telling, the English version proposes that they are going to eat strangers. In original, they are wondering if they are going to eat at all, not implying that they will eat people traveling through their camp. The gnomish-like creature in Russian folklore is called Старичок-Боровичок. It is a common creature of fairy tales and is some kind of forester with magical powers. It protects forest and its inhabitants. It is generally a kind and nice creature, but if you bring harm and disorder to his forest, you may never come back home. And if you are a nice person, he may bring you gifts or offer a help. Its name consists of Старичок, which means small old man, and Боровичок, an edible fungus from pine and other forests. The next scene. some poor guy asking for charity. In English dub, that guy called Ivan a werewolf. Well, in Russian language, a human that can turn into animal, including bear or wolf, is called оборотень. It is not a mistake technically, since English has a word only for human turning into wolf, but I wanted to pinpoint this as an interesting moment. Another scene has confused people as well: the makeup of Marfushka. You see, in Russian tradition, a beautiful woman must have dark eyebrows, white skin and red cheeks. This scene is mocking the fact that stepmother is overly enthusiastic, and this makeup is an overkill. The other moment. Ivan is not surprised when he discovers Baba Yaga's house on chicken legs. Again, all children were grown on Russian folktales and knew exactly who was who, and so did Ivan, because he was grown on the same fairy tales. Also, world of Slavic folktales has kinda shared universe, so it's implied that all mythical creatures knew each other, and so did people. The next thing I decided to stop on is Morozko himself. After all, movie was named after him. Morozko is archaic form of softer naming, like for example, Frederick, Freddy, Jennifer, Jenny, and so Moroz, Morozko. But in reality, this name is not used that often, if used at all. Most people know this character as Ded Moroz, and calling him Morozko will be no mistake, but majority of people still address him as Ded Moroz. In general, you could say that Ded Moroz is Russian variation of Santa Claus, bearded old man that brings presents to kids. But there are differences. Instead of reindeers, Ded Moroz rides a troika, 3 horses in 1 harness. Instead of red, he prefers blue and white, and wears tulup, a piece of clothing for harsh winters. He is not fat and has a much larger beard. He has a sack with presents and magical stuff infused with freezing magic. The other major difference, he is not coming to homes of children, and, as far as I know, is not addressing to list of good and naughty kids. Ded Moroz is not living on North Pole, but somewhere in Russia. There are several theories about his residence. Also, he has no elves or any other helpers, but he has a granddaughter, Snegurочка, and sometimes a grandson, New Year. But these 2 characters will be addressed in future videos. There is still much to tell about Ded Moroz, but I'll save it for the next time as well, because Ded Moroz is a common guest in cartoons and movies. There are lots of moments and mistakes that are not affecting movie that much, so I won't be nitpicking. To summarize everything I've said, Morozko is not different from any fairy tale from any country. But it's a difficult movie itself, because without basic knowledge of a specific culture, you would simply not understand the best parts of it, and the poor localization is not helping in any way. It is fair to call movie a bad one when everyone agrees with it, but some people still found something good in it for themselves. And it is not fair to call movie a bad one when millions like it, millions are neutral, and only viewers of a specific show think that was bad. I am the only Russian around, and this is it for today's video. Hope you enjoyed it. See you on the next one.